Friends, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. I'm delighted to be able to speak with you tonight, and I take it as a great honor and privilege that the congregation provides for me. The late Desmond Tutu said, "We are made for goodness. We are made for love. We are made for all of the beautiful things that you and I know. We are made to tell the world that there are no outsiders. All are welcome." Judaism is a tradition that affirms this beautiful idea in a mitzvah, which is called Hachnasat Orchim, hospitality to guests. According to the teaching of the Talmud, the great compendium of rabbinic wisdom, it says we are required to greet guests at the door and escort them inside, make an effort to remain cheerful during their visit, offer food and drink, ask our guests questions about their interests and activities, escort them to the door when they leave. The tradition models warmth, openness, inclusivity. Abraham and Sarah were the two individuals who first demonstrated this mitzvah, this incredible mitzvah of hospitality. In Genesis chapter 18 opens with Abraham sitting in the doorway of his tent on a hot day. Three strangers appear to him, and the text says he ran to greet them and bowed down to them, offering gracious hospitality of food, water, and shade. He asked his wife Sarah to bake special cakes and bread and help him entertain these unexpected guests. Rashi, the medieval French commentator on the Torah, explores this text. Why is Abraham sitting at the door of his tent? His answer was that he did so to facilitate welcoming strangers immediately. He goes on to say that Abraham made sure to position his tent in a central place in camp and roll up all four sides. This way he could see travelers coming from any direction, and all would feel welcome to approach an open tent. How sacred is this mitzvah? We are taught in the Midrash and rabbinic legend, to welcome a fellow human being is to welcome the divine presence. Hospitality to guests comes, and our connection to God are one and the same. You welcome a guest, you're welcoming God. In traditional societies, people would lodge in the synagogue over Shabbat. And one of the reasons that the Kiddush, the prayer over wine, is chanted in synagogue, even though it's really a home tradition, not for the synagogue, because people were fed Shabbat meals at synagogue when they lodged there over the Sabbath. Hospitality is woven into the Jewish community's spiritual DNA. This brings me to last Shabbat in Colleyville, Texas. What happened there was tragic. It was an attack on the Jews. The hostages did not go and take hostage at a Starbucks or a 7-Eleven. He did not take hostages at the Catholic Church next door. He chose a synagogue on Shabbat to carry out his act of violence, terror, and intimidation. It was very specific. The gunman had demanded the release of another terrorist, a Pakistani woman held in a nearby Texas prison since 2010 for the attempted murder of American troops and FBI agents in Afghanistan. A well-known anti-Semite, she is usually called the Lady Al-Qaeda, demanded ahead of her trial that the court exclude Jews from the jury and that jurors undergo genetic testing to rule out Zionist or Israeli background. Not exaggerating, this is what she said. And as she was convicted, she exclaimed, "This is a verdict coming from Israel, not America." The end of this horror was without injury. And it happened because of the extraordinary strength, direction, it's indescribable, of this Rabbi Charlie Citrin Walker. I do not know him, but I know of him. And what he showed was calm, focus, bravery, every incredible value that we want ourselves and want our children to have as well. What is most important to me is how it happened. It all happened because of this mitzvah that I spoke about at the beginning of my remarks, Hachnasat Orchim. Rabbi Citrin Walker said he was at the synagogue preparing for Shabbat services when the suspect knocked on a window of his temple. He invited him in for tea, thinking he was a troubled soul in need of prayer. The rabbi explained, when I took him in, I stayed with him. Making tea was an opportunity for me to talk with him, and in that moment I did not hear anything suspicious. He said that it wasn't until the beginning of Shabbat services, attended by just a handful of his congregants, the perpetrator let his true motives be known. The rabbi said, while we were praying and my back was turned, we faced towards Jerusalem when we pray, I heard a click. And it could have been anything, and it turned out that it was his gun. How did this happen? Because the rabbi modeled Jewish values. He was being Abraham, who lived kindness, inclusivity. How did this event happen? Because the rabbi performed a mitzvah, one of the highest mitzvot that we have in Judaism. And it seems that his synagogue has thrived because he has modeled this and taught others to model it. And here is where my head explodes. And here is my torment and my confusion and my anger and why I have been having sleepless nights. Synagogues in America face a security threat because we are Jews and Jewish houses of worship are vulnerable. Let us not fool ourselves. And we face vulnerability that is unique to our community. Deborah Lipstadt, this extraordinary scholar of Judaism, of the Holocaust, and who's up for an ambassadorship, but the Senate has blocked her ambassadorship position for political reasons only. Dr. Deborah Lipstadt wrote a powerful article in the New York Times this past week, and I got to find a way for everyone in the congregation, everyone watching, to get it. Just Google it, and I think you'll find it. Deborah Lipstadt, New York Times, and I think you're going to find it. And she wrote these words in this incredibly powerful article, and I quote, "A couple of summers ago, I was in the Berkshires on a Sunday morning driving through one of those innumerable picturesque small towns. Along the way, I passed a large church right on the main street. It dated back to Revolutionary times. Something seemed off to me. The 4 large entry doors were wide open. Congregants stood happily greeting people as they entered. Then I realized what was discordant. No armed guard, no security check. No one told us to please use the side entrance because it's more secure. Just an open invitation, come in, welcome." No synagogue can do that anymore. We seek to be an inviting community. By definition, Synagogues need to be open. Haknasat orchim is who we are. It's what we are. It's what we're meant to do. It's what Abraham and Sarah taught us thousands of years ago. In a contemporary context, how friendly the synagogue is makes all the difference. We try to be welcoming virtually, but what we can express through this relationship is limited. We will open soon. What happens then? A person judges a synagogue within a few minutes of their arrival. Does anyone greet me? Did anyone get up and introduce themselves to me? Did anyone show interest in me? Did anyone give me a prayer book? Did the rabbi welcome me? We think about clever ways to get new members, and my answer is, make everyone who walks through the door welcome. Everything else will fall in place. But if this mitzvah, haknasat orchim, cannot be carried out, we are no longer the same kind of community. We can no longer be what our tradition says we need to be. You know, a couple of months ago, we gathered in the plaza for our menorah lighting for Hanukkah. In a non-COVID world, should we say invitation only? Can we express haknasat orchim, welcoming of guests, when at the same time we check a person's handbag or use a metal detector? And I see both of those precautions as prudent for our security and necessary, really necessary. But it's certainly bold. What does it feel like to have live shooter drills in a synagogue? Or always thinking about the exit, or being suspicious of the newcomer? Is that person packing? We know that there are security issues, and I think about them all the time. But we also have theological issues. Can we live our values safely? There's no more important challenge facing our synagogue, facing the Jewish community than how do we today welcome guests? A Judaism rooted in fear and suspicion is not worth living. A Judaism which ignores danger cannot survive. That is our dilemma. I don't have a clear solution for you tonight. I wish I did. It's so complex. It's really beyond me. I feel an obligation just to share it with you. And I welcome your thoughts, your questions, your reactions to this dilemma that we confront as a community, and I've expressed tonight. It's something we're going to have to struggle with and search for and reflect upon, to think about carefully, to balance different values and different ideals. Obviously, we need to be safe. Being secure, but not losing the core of who we are. Hinei matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good and how pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together in unity. May we find a way to make this so. Shabbat Shalom.